Good evening. Welcome to our behind-the-scenes look at the Underreported. I'm joined here at Sam Houston State University with a number of young journalists who work on our program. I'm Martin Rather, by the way. And while we're going into this, I want to mention that this is the largest group we've had so far. A number of young people, I guess, procrastinating on our college exams. And I want to begin by a little bit of controversy that we had in our editorial meeting. Just kind of go over what we do at the show. We have a show that comes out every Tuesday night on Facebook. But as part of that, we have an editorial meeting where we look at stories from correspondents from across the country, and we had that meeting just a few minutes ago. It just wrapped up, and there was a little bit of controversy involving some of our core messages. So I'm going to turn now to Jalissa on the end to talk about it a little bit more.
Definitely. So we did have one of our correspondents submit a story about a women's social club. That was such a great story, and it was very interesting. All of us were pretty intrigued about it, but it did mention the current president, Donald Trump. And we had to, although it was a good story, we had to stick to one of our core messages, that we are not Trump. We are Trump-free news, and we're focusing on underreported stories that don't have anything to do with him. And it's not that we're anti-Trump, it's that we're focusing on stories that the media has not reported enough about, or that people haven't heard about or heard enough about. Also, we had a story last week that talked about the Affordable Care Act, and the correspondent mentioned Obamacare, but we said to use Affordable Care Act because, again, it's not about the current presidency. It's about the story, and it's about doing this for the people as a public service. It's not about who we're against or who we're for. It's about what we're doing for the people. So no matter how good of a story, we have to stick to our core messages and our core values that we're trying to show to our viewers.
Great points all around. And, of course, we come at this with the utmost humility. We don't think we know better than anybody else. We just think that we have the ability to do something a little bit differently. And as Jalissa said, that's news as a public service. But I do want to talk a little bit more about this because I think it's indicative of how we go about this. A lot of people want to know what our process looks like. Giovanna here in the middle, kind of, she was on the air last week, so she's got experience as a correspondent. And I'd like to ask you, Giovanna, about the process behind that, what it feels like to see yourself on the air, in terms of also picking the right story, the thing that is going to end up perhaps being seen by a good amount of people in the following week.
Thank you, Martin. To be honest, it was quite exhilarating to see my work be recognized nationally, and for my friends and my family to see what I do in college, and it makes it all worth it. So the effort that I put into finding the story is first and foremost something that's super underreported, and that I find interesting, and that I would feel like the people on Facebook would have an interest in. And that story, I think, was perfect because it had to do with Facebook, which is our platform. So that's pretty much what I did, and I don't know, it was just really exciting. So
I'm glad you found it to be, quote, exhilarating. I'm now going to go over here to Tyler, who's a producer on our program. And Tyler, I think a lot of people are curious. We get a number of comments, right? We get a number of messages and, things people say. I guess the question that I've heard, I think it's the simplest one, is do we actually read these comments? And if so, do we incorporate any of their feedback?
Of course we read comments. One of the things with a lot of us are different types of mass communication. I'm personally a PR major, and that type of research, or the type of data that's out there, can be used as research for our for future newscasts that we do. So we get ideas from stories from our comments. We get good constructive criticism. We get good feedback from everyone, and we kind of get to see how our how our audience is involved in our stories and what they're seeing, what they like about it. So it's a good way to be able to see the exact result of our work.
Absolutely, and sometimes we even get story ideas from people, right? And so with that, Teddy, to my left here, you've been looking into a story that a commenter suggested just maybe within the last week on this idea of a Factor E farm. That's FACTOR-E, and this idea of open source ecology. So if you'll just kind of explain that again, like I said, when we see these comments, we go into them in even more depth, and we want to make sure that we're able to respond and note that we do, as I said, read the comments, as Tyler said as well. So with that, Teddy, why don't you give us a little more information on that story suggested by a viewer?
Yeah, so this concept is really interesting. It was started in 2011 by a man by the name of Marcin Jakubowski, name butchering. But basically his whole idea was to deprivatize the means of production so that the idea of a completely self-sustaining civilization could be a reality for anyone. So in layman's terms, IKEA-ing an entire society. So it's a really interesting concept. It's something that should definitely be explored further, and it's something that the Underreported is looking into. So that goes to show that your story ideas in our comments are not taken lightly, and if you have a good story idea, please let us know.
Well, that's all that needs to be said on that subject. Now going to Michaelin, who's going to make her debut for our show in this very next week. Just kind of talk about the emotion, behind that. It's again, Giovanna finds it exhilarating. I don't know what word you'd use to describe it, but I'm curious. So let us know.
It's nothing short of exhilarating. I'm just very excited. I'm looking forward to seeing it on the show. I had a great time, working on it and finding, the facts and everything about it. And I just hope everyone likes it at home. And whenever they're watching it, they're feeling it.
So give us a sneak peek. What's your story?
It's about an act in Congress, in the Senate, actually. Sorry about that. It's called the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act of 2017, and it's allowing victims of sex trafficking to sue the website that allowed the exploitation of them. And I just thought that was really interesting.
Absolutely, and I know folks will be excited to tune in next week. We all here recognize that we have a great opportunity in terms of being able to deliver a national news program in our own small way. As college students, it's an opportunity not taken lightly, and so we're really grateful to all of you who make that a reality. We get comments from everywhere from the Philippines, Florida, anywhere. Sorry, I didn't mean to take a shot at Florida there. You've got some great people. But, so we just really appreciate everybody who takes the time to tune in each and every week. Again, the show comes out Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. We've got a great show coming up next week with a number of we have a new correspondent and a number of brand new underreported stories. So I hope you'll tune in. And once again, thanks for taking the time to watch. Appreciate it. Have a great week.